welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. Happy Solo Shot Saturday for the first time in a while. First off-season pod, true off-season pod, as we are not talking about any 2025 Major League Baseball. We are on to 26. I am very, very excited to get into my free agent predictions. As shaky as mine have been in the past, I've nailed some of the big ones, but missed on a lot of the second through whatever your tier limit is, guys. But I'm very, very excited to give my thoughts on the free agent class that is. But before we get into that, we had some managerial hirings that I've not talked about, and we'll have some new managers throughout baseball. I've talked about Kurt Suzuki. I've talked about Tony Vitello. The Orioles signed Craig Albernaz to be their manager. Was a shocking signing to me. He was someone that was definitely on the managerial track, but I thought that a organization like the Orioles would want to hire someone who was not a first-time manager, someone that is someone experienced, someone that is big time to kind of right the ship there. Albernaz, definitely someone that was going to get a job this offseason, it seemed like, and the Orioles were able to snack him up. Washington Nationals agreed with Blake Butera to be their next manager. Was one of the most shocking hirings in terms of like the candidates that were out there versus him. But Blake Butera is getting a chance during this rebuilding Nationals era to be at the helm. It'll be interesting to see what he's able to do. The Atlanta Braves made probably the safest move they could have made, which was elevating bench coach Walt Weiss to the managerial spot. He had formerly coached the Colorado Rockies to an okay record. He's getting another bite at the apple here in the big leagues. And I think the Braves really needed to shake things up, and they seem to be giving it another ride with this core. They have all their guys under contract for this year. And Walt Weiss is going to be managing the ship. I wonder how long that leash will be. Brian Snitker, unlike other managers that got canned, got moved into an advisory role in the front office. I don't know what the Braves are thinking, but it'll be interesting to see what Walt Weiss does differently that he wasn't already doing as the bench coach in that locker room. San Diego Padres signed Craig Stammen to be their next manager. I was talked about on Baseball Today with Chris Rose that if you look at pitchers, former Major League pitchers that have won a World Series as a manager, you have to go back to John Farrell in 2013. And the list of guys before, Roger Craig, Bob Lemon as an interim manager for the Yankees. There's not a lot of former pitchers that have brought you to the promised land. And the Padres, they seem like it's a World Series or bust team in terms of the spending that they've done in the past. I know the new owners did not spend last offseason with major league contracts, and now they are rumored to be trying to sell the team. So there could be some shakeups in the future. And Craig Stammen, someone who has been in an advisory role in that front office for a few years, someone that has played with some of these guys on the Padres roster as a reliever. They're hoping that former player, younger guy, will connect with the team more than Mike Schilt was able to. But I think the real tie-in that I have here is that the Padres built a super pen, and now they have a bullpen pitcher as their manager. I'm interested to see how that points towards the future direction of the Padres franchise more than I think it affects how they will play in 2026 if they keep the current roster. The most surprising signing to me was Derek Shelton, who missed out on the Twins' managerial job the last time around, ended up coaching the Pirates for the last several years. He immediately gets another job. And I don't think Derek Shelton is a bad manager by any means. The Pirates players seem to love him. He's been great in interviews. He seems like a good baseball mind. It's just shocking to see the Twins hire him right after when he did not turn the Pirates around into a winner. I know the Twins traded everybody else and don't plan to be doing much winning here, so maybe he's someone that the players love him and get behind him and build up the young kids. Maybe he's the guy, but that was probably the most shocking retread that I saw. There was a lot of first time managers where you just never know. Some of them are gonna hit with flying colors, and some of them are not gonna be long for this job. But that is the leadership heading into the 2026 Major League Baseball season, obviously, with Kurt Suzuki and Skip Schumacher that I talked about as well on a past pod. Skip Schumacher was the guy that getting another bite at the apple was super obvious. He was one of the top head coaching candidates out there, and he ended up getting a managerial job pretty fast. Now, this free agent class is extremely interesting, and I think it's sneaky deep in the hitter realm. We're going to talk about how great the pitching availability is, both free agent, and I'll touch on the potential trade candidates. But there's a lot of bats. Not elite bats, but there are a lot of bats. And I'm just going to go position by position around the diamond for the hitters, and I'm going to give you some predictions on where I think guys are going. JT Realmuto is 35 years old, had 4 WAR last season, and was instrumental to the pitching staff of the Phillies, which is one of the best in the game. I don't think the Phillies let him go. Everyone's saying they don't let Kyle Schwarber go. I think they're even less likely to let JT Realmuto go. Out of their 3 big free agents, I think he's the most likely to stay on a 3-year deal. I think they'll have to go to 3 years to keep him, but I think Dave Dombrowski understands his importance to the franchise. He understands that catchers like this aren't on the market. Replacing him, the drop-off will be stark if they do not bring him back. JT Realmuto, I expect to stay back in Philadelphia, but don't be surprised if someone throws a crazy AAV offer at him for 2 years to try to snake him away from the Phillies. On the first base side, Pete Alonso, 31 years old, had a 5.6 WAR season last year, was a fantastic bat. A lot of people are tying him to the Red Sox, and I think the fit makes a lot of sense. They need right-handed power. They need a power bat, period. He's someone that can play first base, which the Red Sox don't have first baseman down the pipeline after Casas. He's someone that I think, even though I would welcome him in Boston with open arms, we need power. We need someone like him that loves the game of baseball, goes out there every day, doesn't miss a lot of time, 3,100 guy, cleanup bat. The Red Sox need him. But the Yankees have the opportunity here to do the funniest thing in recent memory, which is you signed Juan Soto, our big free agent, last year. Paul Goldschmidt's off the books. We have an opening at first base. I know people are going to say, hey, Ben Rice deserves to be an everyday player. Ben Rice has been the most floated trade chip for the Yankees through all these early rumors. I think whether he ends up being a guy that they platoon between DH and first base, or ends up being a bat off the bench, or ends up winning the starting catching job, like Ben Rice will find a way into the Yankees lineup if they do not trade him. I think the Yankees sign Pete Alonso, bring him across New York, and then when the Yankees and Mets have their Subway Series, you'll have Alonso and Soto on the opposite sides of it that they were 2 years ago. I have Pete Alonso going to the Yankees. I think we talked about these power bats and how 3,100 is not easy to come by. This is the opportunity for the Yankees to do something absolutely hilarious. And although I'd prefer him to go to the Red Sox, I'd prefer him to stay in the National League if he doesn't. My heart has been just telling me since he said he's ready for free agency that the Yankees are going to give him a real contract offer. Josh Naylor, 29 years old, 5.4 WAR. This is the guy that I personally see the Red Sox going after. There was rumors of them being in on him at the trade deadline, and while he has made a big impact in Seattle. The players have loved him as a teammate, and he showed up in big moments. I do have him going to the Red Sox to be their opening day first baseman. He's a little bit younger than Alonso. He's got that just swag and anger in him that the Red Sox have been missing for quite a few years now. And Josh Naylor, while staying in Seattle, seems like a lock to a lot of people that are making predictions. I think the Red Sox are going to look at their model with Craig Breslow, which they already have to try to re-sign Alex Bregman, who's over 30. They're not going to want to bring in two guys and paying for their 30s. Josh Naylor, I know it's only going to be 1 year at 29, and then you're paying for his early 30s, but that's still better than paying for your mid to late 30s with an Alonso or a Schwarber. Ryan O'Hearn had a fantastic first half, made the All-Star team because of the Devers trade, and then got dealt to the Padres where he did pretty much nothing. But he has been such a fantastic platoon power hitter from the left side. I've talked about this with my good buddy Will, who's a friend of the show, big Orioles fan, how Ryan O'Hearn is the type of guy that everybody should want on their baseball team. And when you look at some openings at first base, the Arizona Diamondbacks traded both corner guys. Still have a huge opening at first base. Right now, they're guys that could play first base on opening day. It's pretty sad to look at. Ryan O'Hearn, coming off a down second half, 32 years old. You can get the Josh Naylor level production from last year for a fraction of the price. I really like that fit, Ryan O'Hearn to the D-backs. I think it makes a lot of sense. Him staying in the NL West and a guy who just is really good at baseball but doesn't cost an arm and a leg. That is the exact kind of guy that a mid-market team like the Diamondbacks shoots for. And I think they'd be willing to give him a 3-year contract at a decent AAV to get him in there. The most interesting free agent, who is listed as a first baseman, but I think will be considered more of a second base DH type, is Luis Arraez. 29 years old. He had 2 WAR last year, so double what he had in 2024. He is one of the last true bat-to-ball contact specialists in the sport. And I don't know how a team doesn't want that. There are a lot of teams that are going to have openings in a lot of places. And my initial thought was if Bo Bichette walks, that has been kind of the Blue Jays mantra, and to play him at second base / DH and have Jimenez be your everyday shortstop if Bichette leaves. But I will spoil. I think Bichette is most likely going back to the Blue Jays, which would make that a little bit more complicated. But there is another team that has extended the qualifying offer to their second baseman, but it doesn't look like he's going to take it. And that is the Detroit Tigers. I think the Detroit Tigers, having Arraez being able to play second, first, and DH, but having a legit leadoff hitter in front of the Riley Greens and the Kerry Carpenters and the Spencer Torkelsons of the world, I think that Luis Arraez to the Tigers makes a lot of sense. It's not going to cost a lot of money. And it's a guy that can get on base and get deep into count and fight off pitches and help that offense take that next step. So I like Luis Arraez to replace Gleyber Torres as the Tiger second baseman. Paul Goldschmidt, as I talked about, I don't think he's done. There's been some people that have been floating out what I predicted last year, which was him to go back to Arizona, but he ended up breaking my heart and going to the Yankees. So now his plaque in Cooperstown will have New York American League on it, which really makes me sad. He seems to be chasing a ring because that's really all that there is left for him to do. He's not in the range of getting 3,000 hits or 500 home runs. He's not looking for another MVP. He already has one. He's not necessarily looking for more all-star appearances. Paul Goldschmidt is trying to win a championship. And in terms of championship level teams that have an opening at first base, it's a pretty small list. And when I think about what they're looking for, and what they're looking to do, I can't get this thought out of my head, and it's that Paul Goldschmidt goes to the Brewers. Rhys Hoskins is also off the books. Paul Goldschmidt is obviously older, but the way the Brewers play baseball, the way they win baseball games, back-to-back manager of the year at the helm. This is the kind of low-cost option the Brewers would love to do, and to bring in a veteran who wants to win. And so I'm picking Paul Goldschmidt to the Brewers on another one-year deal. I think that they're going to give it a shot with him. I think the Brewers are a shot to sign any one of these guys to play first base. The Carlos Santana type, bring back Rhys Hoskins, sign a Ty France or Justin Turner, even a Wilmer Flores. But I think Paul Goldschmidt, that veteran leadership, I think was something that was missing when they got embarrassed by the Dodgers, and to just have another adult in that room with Christian Yelich. I really like that fit, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head. So I got Paul Goldschmidt going to the Brewers on a one-year deal. Did I just go 0 for 4 on these first basemen? I very well might have. But this is just what I'm feeling. This is not based off of early rumors. This is just based off fit and my predictions for who fits where best. Another guy from the NPB who's listed as a first baseman, but I think that he's more likely to play third base at the beginning of his Major League Baseball career. He might platoon between the corners, is Kazuma Okamoto. And unlike his third base counterpart, Murakami, Okamoto's 30 years old, but has shown under the hood to hit velocity a lot better. There's a lot of velocity in Major League Baseball. I think Okamoto's going to get a contract from a Major League Baseball team to play at a spot. And honestly, when I think a team that wants right-handed third base help, I really feel like that's the guy who goes to the New York Mets. He can play both corners. So regardless if you want Vientos to stay at third and Okamoto to play first, or you want vice versa, I think Okamoto to the Mets makes a lot of sense. I know usually the West Coast teams have the big advantage on these Japanese free agents, but I think the Mets having Senga there and also bringing in a real offer for Okamoto, who I think will be of value compared to Murakami, I really like that fit of Kazuma Okamoto to the New York Mets to play third base, most likely. He might play first. On the second baseman market, Gleyber Torres, I think he's tearing down the qualifying offer. I think he can get a multi-year deal where the AAV may not be 22, but it's somewhere in the high teens, low 20s. Gleyber Torres, to me, is a bat first, second baseman. He hits really, really well. I feel like there's a demand for that up the middle offense. I don't think there's more of that in today's game than there is in past years. But Gleyber Torres, to me, is the kind of guy that you see a smart organization go after. And I know they're not known as spenders, as big spenders, but the Cincinnati Reds have been saying we want offense, and I understand Matt McLain was a hot name at the time. He had a pretty disappointing season. You can also play shortstop. You can have him platoon and be that kind of guy that gives Ellie a day or gives Gleyber a day. You can DH Gleyber some days. I think the Cincinnati Reds are going to be looking for guys that aren't $100 million players, but really help the offense. And Gleyber Torres, to me, is towards the top of that list. It also makes both McLain and Noelvi Marte expendable on the trade market. Christian Encarnacion Strand, they can trade one of those guys. So Gleyber Torres to the Reds is where my head's at. Willie Castro is really interesting because he's a super utility guy that normally would make me say Dodgers. I'm not saying the Dodgers won't sign him, but I don't think they necessarily need to with the contracts that they currently have for Hai-Song Kim, as well as Tommy Edman, Kike. But Willie Castro to the Dodgers would not surprise me. Jorge Polanco, coming off a great year, 3 WAR season, 32 years old. He turned down his $8 million option to hit the free agent market. So he wants to be getting paid somewhere in the double digits, somewhere in the 10 to 15 range per year, I would assume. And I think he can get that kind of money. The real problem is, like I said, second baseman / DH that can hit. And I don't think he's going to have the market that Torres does, being 3 years older. But he is a switch hitter. He did perform in the playoffs last year. If I'm Seattle, I'm trying to bring him back at a higher AAV. I think that just makes the most sense, is to bring him back after having that walk-off in that historic playoff game against the Tigers. Bring him back at a higher AAV and run it back with him, especially if you're losing Naylor, which in my predictions they are. The other second baseman that just always interested me is Luis Rengifo. He's a switch hitter, 29 years old, had 1.5 WAR last year, missed some time. He's the kind of guy that could end up making a pretty big impact on a team. And I do want the Red Sox to sign him. I understand the under the hood metrics, the Baseball Savant page, it's not the sexiest thing in the world. But the Red Sox need up the middle defense. They need positional versatility. And Rengifo, while he's a primary second baseman, they can move him around as well. I think that's the kind of like low end signing that they make on top of bringing Bregman back and signing a first baseman and getting a pitcher. Like those are the big three things. And the secondary thing is like potential defensive, offensive help up the middle. Trevor Story locked in, which is nice, but that's very interesting. The shortstop market is essentially two names. I know there's a couple other guys that are going to get jobs, but Bo Bichette, 28 years old, 4.1 WAR. I alluded to it earlier. While I think he should be one of the most sought-after free agents, I don't think any team is going to outbid the Blue Jays. They have ridiculous money. They were willing to overpay to keep Vladdy. I think they're going to be willing to go over $200 million to keep Bo. And I don't think there's many teams that are willing to offer Bo Bichette $200+ million a year before a lockout. I think Bo Bichette goes back to potentially be the second baseman for the Blue Jays. They'll have that conversation with him if he's going to be a second baseman going forward with Jimenez at short or vice versa. But regardless, I think Bo Bichette's bat, the fact that him and Vladdy came up together, he's a homegrown guy, son of a major league dad as well. I expect him and Vladdy to be paired together for the long haul. Ha-Seong Kim was one of those sneaky signings to me last year. Smart team in the Rays signed him. They ended up DFAing him, and the Braves picked him up, and he actually played well as a Brave for a couple months. A lot of people are saying that the Braves would bring him back, but after Bo Bichette, who I don't think is really going to be on the market, I think he's free, but he's going back. There's a lot of teams that could use a shortstop. There's not shortstops that are 30 years old or younger that hit free agency super often that are good baseball players. So Ha-Seong Kim, to me, is the perfect kind of guy that you buy low on, essentially. He's going to get less money than he did last offseason. And you hope that you get shortstop production and defense to help you in the short term and potentially trade him in the long term if he really bounces back. When I think of shortstop needy teams, there's not a ton that come to mind. But Ha-Seong Kim seems like the guy that the Pittsburgh Pirates would be willing to spend money on. Bring him in, like they did with IKF this year. See if he can produce. If he does, you have a trade chip. If not, you have good defense up the middle at shortstop. I think that Ha-Seong Kim to the Pirates is very, very much in play. But I would not be surprised if a team that's willing to spend more than the Pirates snakes him away. Third base, we talked about Okamoto, who's kind of a corner guy, utility. Murakami is also the same, but he's 26 years old. Everybody's been making a huge deal about his numbers against 93 and above velocity, which, to be frank, aren't good. They are not good. He's hitting under 100 against pitches that are 93 and higher. And he's going to see a lot of those in the big leagues. But Murakami, in the second most respected baseball league in the world, the NPB, has the single season home run record. He has the most home runs through age 25, more through age 25 than Sadaharu O. This is a legitimate game changer. A guy that's coming over at 26, much like Yamamoto did. He came coming over early. I expect teams to be willing to pay big money for him. I'm talking a 6-figure deal. I think he's going to get $100 million or more. This guy being able to play third base, play first base, but depending on the defensive metrics, could be the DH for teams, is someone that I see when I talk shakeup. I'm talking the Phillies. Kyle Schwarber, they obviously want to bring him back. They probably are willing to give him more money than anyone else. But Murakami being able to either replace Bohm at third base or be the DH if Schwarber leaves. 26 years old, helps you kind of move towards that next era of Phillies baseball as well on an older roster. I think that's the kind of shake-up and upside swing that Dombrowski is willing to take. So I got Murakami going to the Phillies, play third base or DH if Schwarber leaves, on a 5-6 year deal that eclipses $100 million. Alex Bregman, if the Phillies or Mets gets involved, I'm scared, but he had the opportunity to go to the Tigers or the Cubs last offseason. I thought he was going to be a Cub. Neither team ended up hitting his number. I don't expect either team to hit his number or either team to be able to say you're going to put up better numbers here than you would at Fenway. The Red Sox have to pay the Pied Piper. And even though their model says 30-plus-year-olds are not good for multi-year deals, Alex Bregman and the Red Sox, it has to happen. It just has to happen. If they let him walk after trading Devers, there will be a huge, huge outroar. And I understand that people are throwing the Mariners in there as an option. They don't really spend like that. Are they going to spend on Alex Bregman to fill their hole at third base? It would be a great baseball fit, but are they going to spend that kind of money? No. Alex Bregman, it's going to be a 4 to 6 year deal, locked in at Fenway as their third baseman, as their clubhouse leader going forward. And he had a 7.7 WAR. So you can't ask for too much more from Alex Bregman. Eugenio Suarez hit 50 bombs last year. He's also a guy that can play first, play third, maybe be a DH. I want this for baseball. This is not necessarily like where I think he has a very low chance of going to this team. But this is what I want for baseball. So I talked about it on a past episode, how there are guys that are sneaky 500 home run guys. And it's Pete Alonso's on pace for 500. Kyle Schwarber has put himself on pace for 500. Matt Olson is on pace for 500. And Eugenio Suarez is technically on pace for 500 home runs. I want Eugenio Suarez to go and sign with the Colorado Rockies. I want to see his pop play in Coors. And you might be sitting here saying, like, that is ridiculous. The Rockies are one of the worst teams in modern baseball history. they're not going to give tens of $millions to a guy who hit 49 home runs last year. Well, Suarez is 34. He'll be 35 in July. He has 325 career home runs. So he has to hit 175 plus to be in the 500 home run club, which is the only way of stealing Cooperstown glory. You need to do this. If you're Eugenio Suarez, you've made a bunch of money in your career. I don't think winning is the most important thing to Suarez compared to some of these other veterans. And you know the Rockies will trade you if you're really balling out. I want to see Suarez's power in Colorado. I know it's not a team that you were expecting to hear anyone get today, but to me, there's plenty of teams that would be willing to give him a 2 or 3 year contract and sign him for that power, see if they can unlock it or juice the rest of the power he has left to give. But realistically, I don't think there's going to be a ton of people looking to pay a 34-year-old that have openings at first base or third base or DH that want that many strikeouts and that bad of a defender out there. So to me, I just want the fun outcome, which is Suarez to Colorado. Some have tried to hit a milestone home run number by going to a place. Dale Murphy tried doing that at the end of his career in Colorado, trying to get to 400 home runs. Fell too short. Suarez, I just want to see him push. So that's very, very exciting to me. Kike Hernandez has pretty much said that he's coming back to Los Angeles. He'll take whatever they offer him. So he's going to be back there. Yoan Moncada is on the market again, and he was someone that was a big-time prospect. He's now 31 years old, coming off of one more season. I don't know who gives him a shot. Maybe a team like the A's that has a nice young core is willing to take a shot on a guy like him. But Moncada, it's crazy to see when the trade happened for Chris Sale, everyone was like, oh my God, you traded the number one prospect in all of baseball, a switch hitting middle infielder with power. Same thing just happened with Leo DeVries being traded for Mason Miller. Sometimes the bird in the hand is better than the two in the bush. And Yoan Moncada is living proof of that. He's had one good season. Chris Sale had multiple great seasons with the Red Sox and won a championship. Outfield market is pretty weak after the big two names. Kyle Tucker. I said that Kyle Tucker was hoping for the Trey Turner contract. I thought that he was a borderline $300 million player, a well-rounded player, but not elite truly at anything. He had an MVP caliber first half and a dreadful summer and okay rebound at the end of the season. He's a great defender. He steals bases. He can hit for power. He can hit for average. He's a very good baseball player. If he's in that Trey Turner range, I do expect the Dodgers to be a player if they can get him in the low threes. There are a lot of people predicting that he will still get $400+ million, hitting the market at 29 years old. If Kyle Tucker, I'm putting my stamp on it now, if Kyle Tucker signs for $400+ million, it has the opportunity to be the worst contract ever signed, just from a money to production basis. Now, I understand a lot of guys are getting extended before free agency. He's 29. He's in his prime years. He is a truly, truly good player. I wouldn't be comfortable giving him that kind of contract. So if I go based on my priors, that he's going to be hoping for a Trey Turner type deal where he pushes double digits in years and gets around low 300 million range, I have him going to the Dodgers to make them just an absolute monster. That's where they need to improve the most. And I really think that they would be willing to give him that contract. Cody Bellinger is the other big name in the outfield. 30 years old, coming off a really nice bounce back year with the Yankees. He can play all three defensive positions in the outfield, all as well as first base. The Yankees seem very inclined to bring him back. I think that they're going to give him a legit offer, and I would be shocked if he doesn't re-sign with the Yankees. So I'm going Cody Bellinger back to the Yankees on a 5-year deal. Could be a little bit more than that, could be his 30, but I think he's getting at least 5 years from wherever he goes. And then there's some fun names in the outfield market. Harrison Bader, Trent Grisham coming off a career year, Cedric Mullins, great bounce back candidate. Every team needs at least 4 outfielders, so these guys are going to get jobs. But I don't have enough conviction on any of these guys to say where they're going to be playing baseball in 2026. Designated hitters, there's 2 pretty big ones. The biggest one, obviously, being Kyle Schwarber, 33 years old, MVP runner-up, hit 56 bombs, on pace for 500 career home runs. But Kyle Schwarber clearly cares about winning. I mean, with the Cubs, Boston, Philly, he cares about big market, he cares about winning baseball games, hitting home runs, not just to hit them, but also in big moments. And the Red Sox, if they sign him because of the qualifying offer, would have to give up a 2nd and 5th round pick. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think many teams are going to be willing to do that. So when I look at suitors for Kyle Schwarber, obviously the Mets losing Pete Alonso's power, getting to steal Kyle Schwarber's power would be pretty exciting for a 5-year stretch. But does he want to go to the Mets when he can stay with the Phillies? I don't think so. I've seen people fan fictioning about a return to Chicago. But to me, the Phillies are going to have the best offer, and they don't have to give up the picks. I'd be shocked if he doesn't come back to Philadelphia. So I'm going to predict him to go there, but there are some teams that would be willing to throw the bag at him. And maybe he just takes it. Maybe he wants to change the scenery as well. Marcell Ozuna is the other one. He's 35, coming off an injury-plagued year, but he's got a lot of pop, and I could totally see him going to one of these mid-market teams as a possible flip candidate / can you really help me at a value this year, hitting 25, 30 home runs. And when you just have a pure DH opening, there's not a lot of teams because a lot of teams have kind of pigeonholed someone into that DH spot. But Marcell Ozuna can absolutely rake. There's no denying that. I think the Cincinnati Reds, if they have an offseason where they sign Gleyber Torres and Marcell Ozuna, they trade one of these young position players and a young pitcher to get an outfielder, that's a really good offseason for a team that needs the offensive help. Now, on the pitching side of things, I understand I'm going really long today because there's a lot of names to talk about. This free agent class isn't all time, but it's very deep. Starting pitching market is headlined by 2 guys that just consistently have gotten it done in Framber Valdez and Dylan Cease. Cease has the age option on him. He's 30 years old. He's coming off a down year, not the kind of year you want to go into a contract season with, but I think him being 30, I think the strikeout stuff still being there, I think the kind of pitcher he is, someone can really unlock him and bring him maybe to that Cy Young level again. Dylan Cease, to me, is going to be the highest paid pitcher this offseason. I would be surprised if Valdez or Imai were able to beat his total number that he gets. Every team needs starting pitching help. There's no doubt there. But the team that has said we're looking to add, the Toronto Blue Jays have a lot of money. And Kevin Gausman only has 1 more year on the books. They've just brought back Shane Bieber on a 1-year contract. Chris Bassett is a free agent. They obviously have Trey Savage under control. you need to lock in another arm. And Dylan Cease is the perfect kind of guy for them to give, the Kevin Gausman contract plus, because I think he's been a little bit better than Gausman was coming into that. Dylan Cease to the Blue Jays has made a lot of sense to me this whole time, and I think if the Blue Jays can go out there next season and have a rotation that is Gausman, Cease, Savage, and Berrios, that's really, really scary to the rest of the American League. I expect them to be in on one of these pitchers, and Cease is the one that just the age and the years and the guys that are coming off the books, it just makes the most sense to me. Framber Valdez, I picture as a San Francisco Giant. 32 years old, obviously had that big scandal with crossing up his catcher, but he's a winner, he's a consistent pitcher, he throws innings, and he's a ground ball pitcher. The Giants have assembled one of the best defensive infielders on the left side in baseball. Devers played a plus first base last year. This team, Logan Webb, their ace, is a ground ball pitcher. I think it just makes a lot of sense for the Giants to invest in a guy like Framber. I think having that rotation, replacing Verlander's spot with Framber, that's such a leg up. They can really make a bounce back in the NL West. So I got Framber Valdez going to the Giants, Cease going to the Blue Jays. The distant names, Ranger Suarez, if your team needs a number 3 or 4 starter that can shove and is not afraid of the big moment in the postseason, Ranger Suarez is your guy that you call. I think he's going to be an Astro. I think that the Astros don't want to pay Framber's number, especially because of the clubhouse problems. But they can replace the lefty in the rotation for a fraction of the price, and he will not be afraid of the big moments. So I got Ranger Suarez replacing Framber in Houston. Chris Bassett, we talked about, he's 37 years old, but showed in the bullpen during the postseason that he is doing everything that he's willing to do to win. I think that's the kind of guy that you throw a dart at. And I just see him as someone who would be willing to take pretty low money. He's made some decent money in his career to go chase a championship. And when I think about teams that are truly trying to win a championship and could use a back end of the rotation arm, a veteran presence like that, the Detroit Tigers, hello. I think that just makes a lot of sense there. Michael King, again, not the best season going to a free agent market, but I think that at 31 years old, he'll still have some suitors. He's a guy that's a ground ball pitcher and has high-end strikeout stuff as well. So he misses bats and limits strong contact. The Red Sox is my preferred destination. Like I would like to sign Michael King and trade either Duran or Abreu with some other combination of prospects for another arm. I'd like to get 2 pitchers. So I got Michael King coming to the Red Sox. He went to Boston College, and we see him in division. We've seen what he can do in San Diego. So I like Michael King to the Red Sox. Shota Imanaga, really bad second half last year. The Cubs decided to opt out of his contract. He decided to hit free agency, and I think he wants to go play in LA with the Dodgers, take Kershaw's spot in the rotation. I don't know if the money's going to work, but I just, when I think of Japanese stars wanting to play together, Imanaga, who is an borderline all-star level pitcher, hitting the market. He doesn't want crazy money. He'll take a short-term deal, I think, to play for the Dodgers, play with Yamamoto, Sasaki, and Ohtani again. I have Shota Imanaga going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Zach Gallen, if he does not take his qualifying offer to go back to the Diamondbacks, I'll be shocked. The same goes for Brandon Woodruff, who I'm personally a big fan of. He's really, really good, but has missed a lot of time, and $22 million a year before the lockout, having a healthy offseason, hoping that you can have a better push for a multi-year contract next year. I think those guys take the qualifying offers to go back to their teams. And then there's just a bunch of like guys that I'm going to be complaining that some of these guys don't have work in February. Merrill Kelly, Nick Martinez, Zach Littell pitched a ton of innings last year. Patrick Corbin came back from the dead. Eric Fetty, Justin Verlander, Zach Eflin's out there. I think he's a great guy for a back end of a rotation. Miles Mikolas is going to try to get a job. Adrian Hauser was fantastic last year for the White Sox and Rays. Lucas Giolito coming off a really great bounce back season. Jose Quintana, Quality Q, is going to be back out there on the open market. Paddock, Savali, Anderson, Soroka, Gray, Perez, Canning, Flexen, Stroman, Scherzer. Like, Dustin May is a fun project. There's so many great arms that you sign one or two of those guys, and if they don't have it in camp, you can release them. But yeah, I think there's a lot of quality pitching on the free agent market, and that's not even mentioning the trade market, which is now headlined by Tarek Skubal most likely getting moved, with guys like Hunter Green and Mackenzie Gore, Sandy Alcantara. There's a ton of guys that could get traded too. So I expect a lot of rotations to get revamped with multiple guys being switched in and out. The bullpen side of things is, I think, a lot more fun. Amai, obviously, I got to talk about before we move on to the starting pitchers. Amai, 27 years old, coming over at the right time off of Yamamoto's success. I think he's going to get a contract that starts with $100 million. And he is someone that I could see a team also like the Giants investing in to have that and say, hey, like, you can help us beat these other Japanese guys, the best of the best. But I don't know why I can't get this thought out of my head, and I don't know why he would necessarily sign with them. So, scratch it. I'm going to stick with my initial thought. I'm going to have Amai going to the Giants, and the Giants will pay strong for him. And if they add Framber and Amai to that rotation behind Webb, I think that's a big time off season and taking advantage for them. The relief pitchers, Edwin Diaz, the Trevor Hoffman NL Reliever of the Year award winner. He wants to get the same contract he got last time around. So if he wants something close to that, I think he'd have to return to the Mets. But the Dodgers need back end of the bullpen help. He's the best bullpen arm on the market. I would not be shocked if they offered him a contract. And if you're Edwin Diaz, why wouldn't you go chase a ring while also getting paid? So I think Edwin Diaz to the Dodgers makes a little bit too much sense. Robert Suarez and Raciel Iglesias are both hitting the market. These are both like quality veteran, 35 and 36-year-old respectively, guys that you can put in that closer role for your team. And I think there's a lot of teams that could use a guy back there at the end of a younger bullpen. So those are guys that you see these fringe playoff teams going after. I think that I'm going to link these guys together. I think the Chicago Cubs sign one of these two guys to be their closer next year. I don't know if it's going to be Suarez or Iglesias. I don't know who they prefer, but I have a feeling that one of those two guys will be the Cubs closer next year. Ryan Helsley is a name that I personally love as an NL fan of the Cardinals. Crazy, great velocity. He's 31 years old, so he's a little bit younger. I expect him to be able to get multiple years from a team. And the reason I see him and Devin Williams as like really good rehab projects for teams is for that same reason, is like that multiple years of a guy throwing 100 plus, like relievers are so year to year, like they could have one great year and one bad year and it'd be worth the contract. Ryan Helsley did not shine as a New York Met. I expect Ryan Helsley to return to the NL Central. This time as the guy coming out of the pen for the Brewers. I think Helsley's money is going to be lower than Williams, lower than Diaz's, and you can add a guy who terrorized you for years in St. Louis to the back end of that Brewers bullpen. For Devin Williams, a lot of people are trying to say he'll be the Cubs closer next year because of the Craig Counsell combo. But when I think Devin Williams, the most interesting rehab project on the market, I think he's going to be just looking for money and opportunity. And I think he just goes across town. I think he becomes a New York Met. I think the Mets are going to be willing to give him real money, set him up to be that closer. And at 31 years old, a guy who, before he got to the Yankees, was one of the best relievers in the sport, you can get him at a discount, 31 years old, as opposed to paying Diaz more money. I think the Mets can still spend without breaking the bank. Bunch of other guys that will have impacts on the 2026 Major League Baseball season. Pete Fairbanks hit the market after opting out. David Robertson's back out there again. Kirby Yates. Tyler Rogers. Sean Newcomb was sneaky good after he left the Red Sox. Luke Weaver is on the open market. I think he's back with the Yankees, no doubt. Danny Colum, who was traded from the Twins, is a very good left-hander. I'd love the Red Sox to sign him. Steven Matz, who was very good with the Red Sox, is back out on the market, as well as Justin Wilson, a couple lefties. Brad Keller, who was the Cubs closer down the stretch. I think he'll get a contract somewhere. Anthony Dominguez from the Blue Jays, who was very good with them. Pierce Johnson. Drew Pomeranz trying to get one last bite at the apple with a contract. Ryan Presley on the open market. Michael Kopech, 30 years old with gas. I know he has the injury concerns. The team's going to love putting him in their bullpen. It's just fantastic to just look at all these names, even guys like Liam Hendriks and Ryan Stanek, who have been good in the past. Hector Neris, Kendall Graveman, Tommy Kahnle, guys that who knows what they could do for you in 2026 if you like their stuff or they fill a role in your bullpen that was lacking last year or is currently a free agent. These are guys that can fill those holes. Jonathan Loáisiga is a guy I've always liked. So Romano is going to be back in the market. If one of those guys has a bounce back year and it's an all-star closer for a team, it will not shock me at all. So a lot of arms to talk about. I went super long on this video. So I apology there. At the Shot Sports Podcast, with the throw it back down the third base line to this day in baseball history. And November 15th had a lot of award stuff, which is fitting because we will talk about the award winners to round out the show. But there was two historically significant moments that happened. First, you see the signature of Bid McPhee at the bottom of the scorecard. Bid McPhee, obviously, was a Hall of Famer, second baseman, but he announced publicly on this date in November 15th, this date in 1894 in Sporting Life, he said that he will hardly discard the glove next season now that he's accustomed to wearing it. We were still at the point in baseball where they were playing barehanded in the field. Gloves just started getting introduced, and Big McPhee was one of the first stars to be like, I'm used to wearing this. I'm going to continue to do so. I wonder if that gave him a leg up to making the Hall of Fame, was being willing to use things that help him. But the more interesting thing was on this date in 1886, the Cincinnati Red Stockings and St. Louis Browns completed the first ever recorded trade. We'll talk next week about potential trade rumors and stuff. We'll hear more about that going forward. But the Red Stockings traded Hugh Nickel. They got Hugh Nickel in exchange for Jack Boyle, rookie catcher, and $400 cash. It was the first recorded trade of reserve players in Major League Baseball history. Boyle was nicknamed Honest Jack, went on to have a 13-year career, but not super successful, a 54 OPS plus. Went on to be the Chicago Pirates in the Players League, back to the Browns, and then to the New York Giants, and finally the Philadelphia Phillies before retiring in 1898. So he stuck around. He hung around as a catcher in the big league. Nickel was a 5'4" outfielder who hit .215 in his first season with the Reds. He did set a major league record with 138 stolen bases. So if you've never heard the name Hugh Nickel, now you know. 138 stolen bases. They were recorded a little differently back then for like when runners took an extra base. Going first to third on a single counted as a stolen base. But 138 steals still in a season, that's pretty big. Hitting .215 especially. So you're not getting on base a ton and you're getting that many bases. You'd say the Reds won the trade, but neither side got a Hall of Famer like Bid McPhee. And these kind of early baseball stories with the limited reporting are just super, super interesting for me to go back to when I do this segment every week. Award winner fallout. We talked about it with the managers. Manager of the year, I think, is the least debated one in sports. Congratulations to Pat Murphy and Stephen Vogt on winning that. I think both of them were deserving. I think usually all three finalists are pretty deserving for those awards. It's harder to give the manager full credit sometimes for these turnarounds because the players are the ones that are taking these at-bats and throwing the pitches. So we'll talk more about the players. The most disputed award winner that I have is the NL Rookie of the Year. I agree that Drake Baldwin had a very good hitting season. He stepped up big time for the Braves when Sean Murphy was not ready to begin the year. But Drake Baldwin was good. He was good all year, was not great. Cade Horton of the Chicago Cubs was a big part of the reason why the Cubs caught up in the wild card race and made the playoffs. They lost Justin Steele early in the year. Like I said, Imanaga in the second half was not good. They had fall-offs from some of the guys that were fantastic for them, like Matthew Boyd in the first half. He fell off a little bit in the second half. Cade Horton's second half directly correlated to a playoff berth. Drake Baldwin's admirable replacement of Sean Murphy did not get the Braves any closer to the playoffs. The defensive numbers for Baldwin are also not great. They're okay. To me, I would have given it to Cade Horton 9 times out of 10. I understand he had an impact on less games, but the impact that he had was so much more directly correlated to winning baseball and pure dominance as opposed to being really good, like Drake Baldwin was all year. I would have given it to Cade Horton. Now, with the AL Rookie of the Year, Nick Kurtz was a runaway. As soon as Roman Anthony was done for the year, there was no chance that anyone other than Nick Kurtz was winning the award. He had a fantastic year. We've given him his flowers on the show. Congratulations to Nick Kurtz. His Topps Update rookie is now available to everyone, unlike Roman Anthony's, who's being held out for 2026 Series 1 for some reason. But Nick Kurtz, Rookie of the Year, bright future, one of the best first basemen in the game already. I'm excited to see the rest of his career pan out. The Cy Young Award, I had a really cold take this offseason that was, I know Skeens and Skubal are the two best pitchers in the sport. I'm not saying they can't win the Cy Young, but if you're telling me that they are so much far ahead in these betting odds, I will take the field over both of them. And I took the best, I think, in the field for each. I took Crochet and Wheeler. Crochet was the runner-up. Wheeler was on pace to be a Cy Young Finals before he got hurt. But Skeens and Skubal end up winning the Cy Youngs almost unanimously. And I don't know what to tell you. Like they're the two best pitchers in the sport. Paul Skeens, historically, 20-plus starts of a sub-2 ERA. to start a career. He's the first to ever do so. The only other pitchers to do that over any 2-year frame are all Hall of Famers or first ballot locks like Clayton Kershaw. He is on an all-time great path. Tarik Skubal won the pitching triple crown last year. Back-to-back Cy Youngs, first time that's happened in the American League since Pedro in 99 and 2000. And like I said, I think he is very much on the trade market. I think the New York Mets make a ton of sense for him. Just enjoy what you're seeing with these high-end pitchers because it can be gone in the blink of an eye, going from Cy Young level to just good, sometimes to out of the league. Enjoy these pitchers while you have them. Enjoy Skeens, young prime, because it's appointment viewing when there are pitchers that are this good. And the MVP, I know I was on Team Rally, and I would have voted for Rally if I had a vote, but I can't argue with the Aaron Judge selection. You can't. The most home runs ever hit by someone to win the batting title. He had over a 200 OPS plus. He's otherworldly. He's one of the best hitters I've ever seen and deserved the MVP. No one's going to look back on this award in 20 years and say Rally was robbed, but Rally had an MVP level season, and I tried to give it as much love as I possibly could throughout the year. In the NL, Shohei unanimous for the 4th time. He's the only player in the 4 major professional sports to win multiple MVPs unanimously, and he has done it 4 times. All 4 of his MVPs have been unanimous. He's unreal. We are blessed to watch him. The fact that Kyle Schwarber, a DH only, 56 home runs, was his second in command competition. I know Juan Soto to me was my number 2, 30-30. Was just laughable. Shohei Ohtani is one of the greatest players in any sport that if you are watching this, we have the opportunity to watch. So appointment viewing, I talked about with the great pitching. Shohei Ohtani, whether he's on the mound, in the batter's box, or both, he is appointment viewing. Go to your ballpark when he's in town, watch him on TV, listen on the radio, tune the heck in, because you're going to regret not doing more so when he's all hung up and done. Appreciate those of you that made it this far. This is one of the longest episodes in the show's history. There's a lot to go through. Let me know what predictions you agree with me on, which ones you disagree with me on, what other predictions for players I didn't talk about, because there was a lot that I didn't talk about where I think they're landing that you feel strongly about. I will be here for the discussion. And email me at dominicmanna44@gmail.com. That's DOMINICMANNA44@gmail.com with the tagline, subject line, Solo Shots. And let me know guests you'd like to see this offseason, topics you'd like to see discussed, historical analysis, suggestions for graphics, intro music, etc. I'm open to all of it and then some. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys next Solo Shot Saturday.